UFC on ABC 5 from Jacksonville, Florida this Saturday. In the main event, we have got Josh Emmett taking on Ilia Topuria, a huge matchup at 145 pounds, and a matchup that will likely determine, I think, the next title challenger at 145 pounds after the winner of Yair Rodrigues and Alexander Volkanovski, assuming Volk beats Yair. Again, Rodrigues could pull something out the hat, but it'll likely be Volkanovski, I think, walking away with the World Championship at the end of UFC 290. But again, Emmett and Topuria this Saturday night from Jacksonville, Florida. Now, the reason this video is like this with the face cam and, again, the Tapology screen on the page here, we've got UFC stats ready, and we've also got the UFC website ready as well. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm going on vacation for a couple weeks, so I need to get ahead with my stuff, and it's just a quicker way of me doing this if I do it like this. And honestly, it'll be for the Emmett and Topuria card and next week's card with the main event featuring Sean Strickland and Abus Magomedov. Both those prediction videos will be like this. Now, the PFL video that comes out tomorrow will not be like this. It'll be like the regular PFL videos. But if you do like this format of video better than what I do originally, then let me know in the comment section down below, because I can do both. I can do videos like this, or I could do it like the original style of videos that I do, of course, that I did last week with Jared Cannonier and Marvin Vittori. Now, this video that I'm filming right now with Josh Emmett and Ilia Topuria in the main event, I am recording this on, what is it, I'm recording this at 11 o'clock on June 12th. That's a Monday. Now, again, Emmett, Jared Cannonier and Marvin Vittori fight on June 17th. Again, I'm recording this video 12 days before the card actually happens because, again, I'm going away and I need to get ahead of my videos. But that's just a warning right now. If there's any fights that are on this card that, say, fall out, or any fights that get added, like, for example, Gregory Rodrigues, who lost his opponent in Dennis Tululin, maybe Rodrigues gets on the card. I don't know, because I'm recording this currently when Rodrigues is not on the card. So we're going to do the style of video like this. Basically, I'm going to do the videos the same way like I do them edited-wise, but of course there might be a couple cuts in this video, but the way you're going to see me do it, at least, this is what I'm always looking at on the screen while you are just seeing the graphics I make. So I'm going to show you everything basically I do when I talk about the fights. I look at UFC stats. I talk through the fights that I remember. I talk through Tapology. I don't really use the UFC website, I'll be honest with you, but it's just here if we need it. And I don't usually use Wikipedia. I just use Tapology and UFC stats. I think it's the easiest way to do things. So let's get it going. Here we go. UFC Fight Night, Emmett versus Topuria. We're just going to go the lineup that Tapology's got. So our first fight will be Jamal Emmers taking on Jack Jenkins. Here at 145 pounds, Jamal Emmers coming off a win over Hussein Ashkabov in his last fight. Again, undefeated fighter, 23-0 that Jamal Emmers did go out there and beat. He was an underdog going into that fight. He won in that fight and won it by unanimous decision. It was a huge win for Jamal Emmers. Again, I picked against him. When you look at the UFC career so far for Emmers, 2-2 as you see the loss to Giga Chikadze in his first start in the UFC. But we talked about the fight about how, okay, Chikadze rose up the ranks pretty quickly after that Emmers win. It was only a split decision. Emmers stayed in the fight. Chikadze did pull out a split decision. After that, for Emmers, he goes in there and beats Vince Cachero by unanimous decision. He loses to Pat Sabatini after that by heel hook. It was that fight where Sabatini and Emmers are both on the ground early in the first round. Emmers has got, I believe, was the toe hold in, and then Pat Sabatini's got the heel hook at the same time. Sabatini's heel hook wins over Emmers' toe hold, or toe lock, wherever he had him in. Sabatini gets the tap in the first round, and then Emmers in his last fight, again, the underdog, but goes in there and outstrikes and really out-wrestles as well. Ashkabov in that third round goes in there, 30-27s him on that Jessica Andrade, Aaron Blanchfield card that occurred in February. Real quick, as I mentioned the name Aaron Blanchfield, is she fighting for the Bantamweight Championship next? I don't know. Of course, with Amanda Nunes retiring, Nunes is gone from the sport after beating Irina Aldana in Vancouver. What do we get now in that weight class? I'm assuming we're going to see something with Juliana Pena and Raquel Pennington, since Holly Holm is booked against Mayra Buena Silva, but I saw on Twitter, again, Aaron Blanchfield is throwing her name into the hat. That'd be interesting, considering, again, there's a backup on 125 pounds with Alexa Grasso fighting Valentina Shevchenko next. So I'm just saying, that'd be interesting. Anyways, going back to this with Jamal Emmers, he's 2-2 in the UFC. He'll be taking on Jack Jenkins, a guy who won his first UFC outing against Don Shainis. He beat Shainis by unanimous decision. Just real quick, we look at the Tapology odds. Jenkins is a slight favorite. You look, I don't have best fight odds pulled up right now, but I'm sure I can just go get it right now. As we look at best fight odds, I believe Jenkins will be a favorite as well. It's going to be this card right here. We see if I Jack Jenkins. Yeah. Oh, no. Jamal Emmers, minus 180 favorite. So Emmers is the favorite. Again, probably because of his last win, because of his 30-27 victory. But when you look at a guy in Jack Jenkins, again, Jenkins with a big victory over Don Shannis in his last one. It's his only UFC start so far. Landed 4 takedowns in that fight in the third round, similar to Emmers' last fight. A lot of wrestling out of Jack Jenkins. Jenkins ended up winning that fight because of the wrestling that he was able to put on in the third. Again, he was already up 2-0 at that point because of the striking and, again, the all-around game that he was able to present in the second round. So it's going to be interesting a fight here between Jenkins and Jamal Emmers. Again, a lot of people picking Emmers because of his big win that he just picked up in his last fight. Again, most people taking Jenkins by unanimous decision in this one. But it's going to be a really close fight here, again, because Jenkins 1-0 in the UFC. Coming off that win at UFC 284, won in the Contender Series before that. He can really get it done on the feet. Not a bad grappling guy as well. Same with Jamal Emmers. But again, people are high on Emmers because of his last fight. I'm going to be taking, though, actually, I'm going to pull up a third tab on this. I'm going to pull up my picks page for this, and I'll make my picks while I do this video. As again, PFL 6 predictions coming out tomorrow on the channel. You're not going to want to miss that one. In the main event, we will have Anthony Romero taking on Oliveira Abenamroussier. Anyways, we'll make our picks while we do this. I'm going to be taking by decision. I'm actually going to be taking, I'm going to take Jack Jenkins. I'm going to take the favorite in Jenkins to win by decision because I think, again, the Emmers victory against Ashkabov, I don't know how good Hussein really is. He's going to be taking on Joe Anderson Breathu next month. I think Breathu will probably beat him, if I'm being honest. That's on the Strickland Magomedov card, so actually we're going to talk about that fight coming up in the next video we make with the UFC. But yeah, I'm going to be taking Jack Jenkins to pick up the win over Jamal Emmers. I think he'll get it done by unanimous decision. Next up, Trevor Peek is back. He'll be taking on Victor Martinez here. This is a good fight, considering, I mean, you look at what Trevor Peek, and it's really, I think, honestly, a showcase fight for Trevor Peek, and Peek's a guy that I watched his first fight in the UFC. He goes forward against Eric Gonzalez. Now, Eric Gonzalez, by no stretch of the imagination, is a great UFC fighter. I don't know if Gonzalez is even still with the promotion, but again, in Trevor Peek's last fight, he goes in there, he finishes Gonzalez with 1 second left in the first round. Again, Gonzalez is a guy who went 0-3 in the UFC, losses to Jim Miller, Terrence McKinney, and Trevor Peek, and given that is a tough 3-fight stretch, but for Trevor Peek, again, he beats Eric Gonzalez in his last one, and he goes for it. Peek hunts for the kill. If you're looking for an exciting fighter that you can watch out for this Jacksonville card on ABC, I know it's on the prelims, but this is a fun one. And I know this card actually is going to start at 9 o'clock in the morning my time on the West Coast. On the East Coast, it'll start at noon. It's an early card, and Trevor Peek will likely be making the walk at like 9:30 a.m. my time. So I guess I can watch this with breakfast or whatnot. I know I eat breakfast at 9:30 anyways. Actually, I don't eat breakfast, but that's besides the point. Trevor Peek, again, fighting Victor Martinez here, and Peek is going to go for it. That's how he fights. Victor Martinez, let's be honest, was not all that impressive in his first fight in the UFC. He took on the Monkey King and, of course, our guy, Jordan Levitt, and my goodness, Jordan Levitt went through Victor Martinez. He knocked him out in the first round, only took 2 minutes and 27 seconds. Again, Levitt goes out there and outstrikes Martinez 17-7, and it was a great win for the Monkey King. He goes out there and picks up the victory over Martinez, and Martinez is a guy who, like, again, he loses the fight to Levitt, and now they're giving him Trevor Peek, and considering, okay, for Victor Martinez, this was a guy who, again, we thought could go out there and outstrike Jordan Levitt. And Levitt goes out there, gets him in a tie clinch, and just starts unloading with knees, a la Anderson Silva. And Jordan Levitt wins the fight. And now you're going to give Victor Martinez Trevor Peek, a guy who's going to go for it in there. I know Peek does open himself up to be hit a lot, and there's going to be positions in this fight where Trevor Peek is going to, expose himself to get wide open with a big shot. That's going to happen because that's the way Trevor Peek fights. He throws big overhands. He's going to try to hunt for the kill with every single strike he does throw. But you look at the fight that he had against Eric Gonzalez, or sorry, if I said Eric Gonzalez, Victor Martinez is his opponent. I don't know if I messed that up or not. But yeah, for Victor Martinez, again, that's been his stretch so far, is the loss to Jordan Levitt. But for Trevor Peek, again, he goes in there and dominates Eric Gonzalez. He does get a little tired at the end of the first round, which is something to note. So if, again, Martinez can get it out that first 2 rounds, and maybe even at the first round, Martinez can have an advantage in that similar sense. But still, again, you look at what Peek was able to do in the Gonzalez fight. Scored 2 knockdowns in the first round. The second one's all it took. He got the finish late in that first. For Victor Martinez, again, I think it's important this guy gets it out the first round. If Martinez is going to have a chance to win this fight, he needs to get it out the first round against the undefeated Alabama native in Trevor Peek. Again, the Tapology odds show 94% Trevor Peek, 6% for Victor Martinez. When you look at the betting odds or the line for this fight, yeah, it's posted -265 for for Trevor Peek, and then +205 for Victor Martinez for good reason. Again, Trevor Peek is a huge favorite going into this fight. We will make our official prediction right here. I'm going to be taking Trevor Peek to win this fight by first round knockout. I think it's the smartest pick here. I think he's going to go for it. Again, if Victor Martinez has been knocked down the first round by the Monkey King Jordan Levitt, Trevor Peek's going to do the same exact thing. Now, again, Peek's got to get him out of there early, because if Victor Martinez can survive that first round, then maybe again, like the similar style of fight that we saw against Jacob Rosales, where he loses the first round to Rosales, but then he wins the next two and he finally starts coming into his own after that first round, maybe then that's where Martinez can settle in and really start going against Trevor Peek again, because Peek is a guy who tends to really just go for it in the first round. A lot of Trevor Peek fights do not make it out that first round because he just goes for it. I mean, he has not seen a fight go the distance yet. Trevor Peek has not seen a third round. So if Victor Martinez can get it past that second round or even the first, again, you look at his win in the Contender Series against Jacob Rosales. It's a really good performance, but he does drop that first round, but he gets going in the second and the third, similar to a guy like, I would say, Chris Curtis, who really gets to get going after that first round. We'll see what happens. I'm going to go Trevor Peek, though, to get Victor Martinez out of there in the first round. I would be a little bit concerned, and I think playing Victor Martinez live in the second round might not be the worst option if he can get it out of that first round. On to our next one. Randy Brown, the Rude Boy, is back. He's taking on Wellington Turman. It's a fight here at 170 pounds, not 175 pounds. We will look at the favorite here. I'm assuming I'm going to take, I think Randy Brown's going to be a big favorite. That's what I would assume. We'll look at the odds and best fight odds. -265, so the same odds for this fight than what we saw for the Trevor Peek Victor Martinez fight, for a good reason. Because Wellington Turman's a guy who has, traded wins and losses in the UFC. He's coming off a loss to Andre Petroski in his last one. He lost that one by unanimous decision. It was a fight where, again, Petroski goes out there and just pretty much out-wrestles him in that fight. Turman can't really get going once that fight gets started because Petroski kind of just grounds him. In the first round, I would say it is Wellington Turman's best round, but after that, it's all Andre Petroski in that fight. Before that, back-to-back wins, but it's against Misha Cirkunov and Sam Alvey. And, okay, he submits Misha Cirkunov, which I think is honestly one of his better performances to date. And then Sam Alvey, okay, he beat Sam Alvey, but, you're supposed to beat Sam Alvey. And actually, shout out to Sam Alvey for actually winning a fight recently. He picked up a win against, who was it? Yes, Cameron Graham, 6-12 Cameron Graham. He won with, 40 seconds left in the third round. He wins in the main event of B2 Fight Series 183 over there in Columbus, Georgia. Shout out to Sam Alvey. Let's take a gander. Where is Columbus, Georgia? I just want to see how many people are actually in this city. Okay, I can get a 6-hour flight there right now if I want to. I don't think I'll be embarking on that endeavor. Let's see. How many people live in this? Okay, 206,000. It's a solid number. Anyways, Sam Alvey won his last fight. Relaying that back to this fight, Turman barely beat Sam Alvey. It's a fight because for Wellington Turman in that fight, he really couldn't. I think he kicked Alvey in the balls twice, or did he poke him in the eye? I don't remember. He one of the two. I don't remember. But anyways, he beat Sam Alvey by split decision. He loses to Bruno Silva before that, but that's what's going to happen to you. Bruno Silva is a guy who's climbing the ranks pretty quickly, or at one point was. We're going to see Bruno Silva later on this card against Brendan Allen. It's a very interesting fight to talk about, considering against Silva's last result against Brad Tavares. But Turman lost to Silva, lost to Andrew Sanchez, now in the PFL. He did not make the playoffs after beating Taylor Johnson with his only 3 points. But shout out to my guy. I got to mention it every single time. Shout out to Impa Kasanganai. 5 points, getting in the playoffs. So excited for him. Really excited for his fight against Martin Hamlet. But yeah, again, Turman 3-4 in the UFC, or Wellington Turman usually likes to take fights or on the ground. Again, he's really good submission skills, like you saw in the Misha Cirkunov fight, but in his last fight, again, you saw a guy in Andre Petroski go in there and really dominate him on the ground. We're going to see his opponent here, Randy Brown. You can tell I'm doing this on one go because I'm drinking water as I go. No cuts. I'm going to try my hardest to limit the cuts for this video. So if I take a couple more chugs of water here, that's why. But Randy the Rude Boy Brown, 16-5 so far professionally, 10-5 MMA records or UFC records so far. Obviously, the last fight for him, losing to Jack Della Maddalena. He lost to JDM by submission in the first round. It's going to happen to you. Jack Della Maddalena, again, is a top 10 guy, I would say right now. He's going to get Sean Brady on International Fight Week, and that fight is going to be incredible. But for Randy the Rude Boy Brown, again, losing to Jack Della Maddalena, he gets dropped in that first round, then Maddalena takes his back and submits him with the rear naked choke. That's how good JDM is. Della Maddalena is that good. And Randy Brown, a guy who was on a 4-fight winning streak at the time, got submitted in the first round by Jack Della Maddalena. But you can't take away from what Randy the Rude Boy Brown has done since that win over Alex Oliveira. He comes in, he beats Oliveira, he finishes him in the first round with a rear naked choke. Then he goes and beats Jared Gooden. Then he beats Chaos Williams. And then he beats Francisco Trinaldo. This fight is designed for Randy Brown to beat Wellington Turman, and it's likely designed for him to get a finish. I know he has not gotten a finish since that submission victory over Alex Oliveira, and I know, again, Randy Brown does get a lot of submission victories, and this fight likely won't happen. If anything, he will probably win this fight in the feet, and that's where I'm going to take him. I think Randy Brown is significantly better than Wellington Turman, who I think we forget is only 26 years old. He's still young in his career. It's just that Turman's been around for a while, and again, he just hasn't produced the best results in the octagon yet. Randy Brown's going to go out here, and Randy Brown's going to pick up the victory. He's going to go out there and beat Wellington Turman. I like Randy Brown to go out there and get the victory in the first round by knockout. I think he's that much better than Wellington Turman on the feet. The reach advantage is going to be 6 inches. He's going to look like the way bigger welterweight in this fight. I'm going to take Randy the Rude Boy Brown to win this fight. He's going to get it done by first round knockout. Okay, next up at heavyweight, Austin Lane takes on Justin the Bad Man Tafa. So a heavyweight fight, low on the card. Likely will produce a knockout, at least I would think. We've got Lane and Tafa here. It's a good one at heavyweight. Again, Tapology is expecting a knockout. The favorite on Tapology is Justin Tafa. In terms of odds, we have got Justin Tafa at minus 180. We've got Austin Lane at plus 145. So Austin Lane finally getting a shot in the UFC. He's probably most known, I would say, unfortunately, for not being the Fury UFC heavyweight champion. I think it's for losing to Greg Hardy in Greg Hardy's pro debut. I think that's how a lot of people will remember Austin Lane. And then after that, he went in and he lost a fight on Island Fights. He wins 2 after that, loses to Vernon Lewis, goes back, wins 6 straight fights. The best performance, I would say, is the win over Juan Adams. He goes in there and finishes Juan Adams in the 4th round for the Fury FC Heavyweight Championship. Now for Juan Adams, I don't know, what has he done since the PFL? He hasn't done anything. He's booked in a fight, actually, so when this video comes out, Juan Adams versus Shelton Graves would have already happened. We'll see what happens against Graves. Graves is a guy who fought in PFL last year against Ante Dilia. We'll see if Juan Adams can produce a good result out there in that fight against Graves, because, again, Adams is a guy who was actually in the PFL playoffs last season. He lost to Matthews Scheffel, of all guys. But still, for Austin Lane, again, coming off that win over Juan Adams and the Eric Lunsford victory, I was watching that fight at the time. It's a first-round finish for Lane, but Lunsford goes for a kick and just snaps his leg. Lunsford, I think, was coming off a win over Richard Odoms at the time. That's when I was watching Fury a lot. I don't really watch Fury all that often anymore. But I remember there was a stretch last year where I was watching Fury FC whenever they were on, Paris Moran and everything included. But again, for Austin Lane, goes in there, wins on the Contender Series, wins in the first round by TKO. But he's getting a guy in Justin Tafa, man. Tafa's good. Justin Tafa... if he can get it together, this guy hits really hard. You've seen him hit really hard. I know he's the only heavyweight in UFC history to miss weight. Yes, he missed weight at 265 pounds. He weighed in at 267, I think it was the Harry Hunsucker fight, where, sure, he went out and knocked out Hunsucker in the first round, but he missed weight for a heavyweight fight, which is crazy. Again, he's rebounded since then. He won earlier this year. He beat Parker Porter. He knocked him out in the first round. Everything kind of points to another Justin Tafa first-round finish in this fight, if I'm being honest. I know, again, he starts off his UFC career by losing at home to Yorgande Castro, the PFL's own in Yorgande Castro. He beats Juan Adams after that, drops 2 in a row to Carlos Felipe in a fight that I thought he won against Felipe, and then drops one after that to Jared Vandera in a great fight, but he lost it. Then back-to-back wins over Hunsucker and Porter. I just, again... I can't get it out of my mind that sure Austin Lane, as I'm on the Wellington Turman screen, can't get out of my head that, again, Austin Lane lost to Greg Hardy, which, again, I know it was a while ago, but he did lose to Greg Hardy. And if Justin Tafa can really close distance here, he's the more powerful striker and all around. I think he is the better striker. I think it's great Austin Lane finally got a shot in the UFC, but something huge right here, 35 years of age. He is not a young heavyweight at all. Austin Lane is getting up there in age. He's finally making his UFC debut at 35 years old. Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Justin Tafa to win this fight. I'm going to go to my prediction right now. Where is it? Here we go. Yeah, it feels like another obvious pick here. First round knockout, Justin Tafa. I think Tafa's able to close distance. I think he's able to find that big power shot. I think he's able to put down Austin Lane. Give me Justin Tafa to win this fight by first round knockout. Okay, so our next fight, I don't think this fight's going to be this low on the card, if I'm being honest, but we'll just do it how it is, I guess. We've got Neil Magny taking on Phil Rowe. Again, I don't anticipate this fight being that low on the card, considering, again, it is Neil Magny, and I don't think Magny is going to be this low in the prelims, but if he is, Here he is. Magny versus Rowe is an interesting fight because Neil Magny, again, is coming off that spot against Gilbert Burns at UFC 283. Burns goes in there and does pick up the arm triangle finish against him in the first round. He goes out there and he submits Neil Magny pretty early. Again, for Neil Magny, though, this guy has been fighting in the UFC for a very long time. This will be UFC walk number 30 for Neil Magny, this fight against Phil Rowe. Again, he has fought pretty much everybody. He's always active. And again, he's kind of traded wins and losses recently. You look at the record for Neil Magny again, it's a loss over Gilbert Burns. It's a loss to Gilbert Burns in his last fight. His win before that was Daniel Rodrigues, then a loss to Shavkat Rakhmonov, win over Max Griffin, then back-to-back wins again because Griffin and Neil. And then dropped a fight before that to Michael Chiesa. Neil Magny is just a solid UFC fighter. He's a really good fighter. He's got a really good stand-up game. He can get it done on the ground if he needs to. He can wrestle if he needs to, like you saw in that Daniel Rodrigues fight. But if he needs to win it on the feet as well, he can win it on the feet too. But when you look at Phil Rowe, that last fight for him, a very impressive performance. The win over Nico Price at the end of 2022. It was a fight that we did predict Rowe to win. We just had him to win in the second round. But yeah, Phil Rowe looked really good in that fight. It was a really good striking performance. Again, he got outstruck until the knockout, but still, the third round was great for Phil Rowe. It was a fight that he was getting outstruck in until in that third round, he is able to find that big power shot, and he is able to go out there and finish Nico Price in that third. The Jason Witt fight before that's a fight that, again, he is losing in the first round. He is getting dominated wrestling, but then he finds the knockdown, in the second round, and knocks down Jason Witt and knocks him out. Fight before that for Phil Rowe against the Orion Kosi fight that he was losing in the first round. Then, oh, by the way, what happened? He won in the second round. So Phil Rowe has found himself in a lot of spots where he was losing fights, and he comes back and he ends up winning the fight late in the round or late in the fight. Will he be able to do that against Neil Magny? I don't know, because Magny's a smart fighter, and Neil Magny's a guy who's not going to allow himself to get finished late in the fight, especially if he is, again, in a really good position to win the fight. Magny's a very smart fighter. He knows how to keep his distance really well. Really long fighter. Again, he really sticks the jab out there, and he's really solid with it. A lot of people picking Neil Magny in this fight. Again, if you are taking Phil Rowe, you're likely taking him by knockout. When you look at the odds, let's find it. -150 for Neil Magny, +120 for Phil Rowe. It makes sense. It really does. Again, on Tapology, you have 22% for Rowe, 78% for Magny. So, again, a fight that a lot of people are kind of, I wouldn't say split on, but people are backing Neil Magny for the most part. But again, the support is there for Phil Rowe as well. It's a close fight for me, it really is, because, again, I've picked Phil Rowe a lot. We've seen Phil Rowe come back from fights that he has been down in. We've seen him come back, and we have seen him go out there and find the finish late into fights. But for Neil Magny, it's hard to pick against this guy. Again, the UFC record is what? 19-10. It's crazy. Or, sorry, 20-9. Not 19-10. 20-9 for Neil Magny. Again, looking for his 21st win in the UFC, which is nuts. Magny knows how to get ahead. Magny knows how to do well on the feet. On the ground, too, this is probably a spot that he can be real successful, and it's with the wrestling. We've seen Phil Rowe be controlled on the ground by Gabe Green, Orion Kosi, and Jason Witt. Neil Magny, that's a spot for him as well, where he can really go to the takedown, he can hold down Phil Rowe, and then just avoid getting finished late in the fight, because that's, again, a spot that Phil Rowe has been successful in. So again, both guys 6'3", both guys are tall welterweights. Both guys are welterweights with huge reaches, 80-inch reach for both guys. But I'm going to go with the favorite. I'm going to go with Neil Magny to come out here and pick up the victory. Again, I think Magny's going to get ahead early, and he's not going to give up that lead, and he's not going to allow Phil Rowe to finish him late in the fight. So give me Neil Magny to get this win. I like him to win it by unanimous decision. Okay, our next fight will be David Onama taking on Gabriel Santos in this fight. Interesting matchmaking here, because Santos is a guy who was 0-1 in the UFC, but he did take on Leron Murphy in his first fight. He drops it by split decision. It's a fight that, again, Santos goes with the wrestling a lot in that fight, but Leron Murphy tries to keep it on the feet, and Murphy wins a lot of the exchanges stand-up-wise. He's taking on David Onama here, who we have not seen Onama since his crazy fight against Nate the Train in San Diego last August. Onama looked good in that fight in defeat. Again, he knocks down Landwehr in the fight, but just doesn't get the scorecards. Again, it's a very close fight. Landwehr really runs away with the second round, but man, Onama looks good early in that fight. It's a great fight. You don't lose any stock in David Onama with that loss, and it's fine because now Onama's back on another spot in ABC. He's going to be getting Gabriel Santos. For Onama, his first fight in the UFC is a loss to Mason Jones, but again, Mason Jones is a really talented fighter who I think, did he get cut? I don't know if Mason Jones got cut or not, but I thought I saw something that Mason Jones was no longer in the UFC, which if he's not, it's kind of ridiculous. He's 1-2, but I don't know. Again, he lost his last fight to Ludovic Klein. His one win in the UFC is David Onama. He never got that win over Alan Patrick, even though he was on his way to beat Patrick. It was just the accidental eye poke, and, stuff happens, I guess. Before Onama, again, he comes in, loses to Mason Jones, but then beats Gabriel Mowgli Benitez by knockout in the first round. Smith Garrett Armfield in the second round, and for Armfield, again, that was his first UFC fight. We have not seen him since the Onama fight. And then, again, he loses to Nate Landwehr. Booked against Jaro Aaron's fight doesn't happen. Booked against Radzhabov fight doesn't happen. Now we settle on Gabriel Santos here. And Onama, I would believe, is a big favorite going in this one. Let's check the odds. Wow, Onama's a dog in this fight. Really? People are that high on Gabriel Santos. See, that kind of shocks me, I'll be honest with you. I know, again, Santos is a guy coming in from LFA. He's the LFA champion. But, man, that kind of does surprise me. It really does. Because I'm big on Onama. And, again, we haven't seen him in a while. And I know, again, Onama, I think he was a big favorite in the Landwehr fight. He loses. But, again, Landwehr is pretty solid. I'm just surprised. Yeah, I'm surprised the odds are that close. I'm surprised Santos is a favorite, too, honestly. That's surprising to me. Because, again, he is 0-1 in the UFC, and it's Leroy Murphy, but Leroy Murphy is pretty good. I think he took that fight on somewhat short notice, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, wow, I'm surprised. Okay, well, because you know what you are going to get out of this fight. You're going to get a great stand-up fight. Santos is good on the feet. Onama is really good on the feet as well. And wrestling-wise, I think you probably will see Santos try to go the wrestling a lot, because I think that's where he does think he has an advantage. And he likely will have an advantage in terms of the grappling. So we'll see if David Onama is able to keep this fight standing. But I think that's where we're going to see it for the most part. I think you will see a stand-up fight between Onama and Santos here. I think this is interesting. I think you're going to see back and forth, chaos on the feet. Gonna go with David Onama here. I was coming into this video picking Onama. I'm gonna continue to pick him here. We're gonna take the underdog. I think it's a crazy back and forth fight on the feet, and I'm gonna take David Onama to win by knockout in the second round. I think, again, this is going to be a nuts fight. I think it's all action. Santos brings it. Onama brings it. I think we'll see this contested primarily on the feet. And if so, give me David Onama to win this fight. I'd like him to take it by second round TKO. All right, on to the next. In the women's strawweight division, we have got Tabitha Ricci taking on Jillian Robertson here. So we'll look at the odds before we start this. We'll look at the Tapology picks. Currently, we have Tabitha Ricci as a sizable favorite, 71% to 29%. The odds currently, we have Tabitha Ricci, slight favorite, minus 135, give or take. Jillian Robertson, plus 110 on the other side. For Jillian Robertson, her last fight is a win over Piera Rodrigues by armbar in the second round. She is coming off 2 straight wins. Again, both submissions against Maria Ogapova, and I think, again, you got to mention it when Jillian Robertson fights. Again, she finished Rose Namajunas in 65 seconds. It was not an MMA fight. It was in Fury Pro. But still, yeah, Jillian Robertson in a grappling fight or match went out there and submitted Rose Namajunas Thug Rose in 65 seconds, which I think is a pretty big accomplishment for her. And it just shows you overall the really good ground game that Jillian Robertson's got. Now, she'll be taking on Tabitha Ricci in this fight. And for Tabitha Ricci, this is a fighter who comes into the UFC. They draw her Manon Fido right away. And Manon Fido, again, by the way, up a weight class for Ricci as well. She's a 115-pounder. But up a weight class, they draw her Manon Fido. And Fido goes in there and just dominates her on the feet. Fido ends up getting the standing knockout in the second round. But after that, for Ricci, she comes in, she beats Maria Oliveira, who is now no longer in the UFC because of her loss to Diana Belbizia in Vancouver. But Ricci goes in there, beats her by decision, really uses her wrestling. Same thing could be said in her grappling and her jiu-jitsu. Same thing can be said in the Polyana Viana fight. She gets grounds Viana, and the same thing with the Jessica Penne fight. She gets Penne to the ground, and she submits her in the second round. Now you get her and Jillian Robertson, maybe two of the better grapplers in the 125-pound weight division. I mean, again, Robertson's a really good grappler. Again, you saw how 115-pound weight division. You saw what Jillian Robertson was able to do to Rose Namajunas. You've seen what Jillian Robertson has been able to do to fighters such as Piera Rodrigues and Maria Ogapova and even Priscilla Cachoeira. She is able to actively go out there and hunt the submission, and there's not many women's fighters who actively hunt finishes, but these are two fighters that do, and especially on the ground in Ricci and Robertson. That's what makes this fight so incredible, because you're going to see some great exchanges on the ground. You're going to see some great, transitions down there as well, because both these fighters, again, looking for the submission at every single point in this fight. We're going to see the better grapplers, and I'm really excited to see it, because, again, Ricci and Robertson, two really skillful fighters on the ground. Again, people taking Tabitha Ricci, and that's likely where I will go, because we have not seen Ricci get beat on the ground so far in the UFC. We have seen Jillian Robertson gone out there and be controlled on the ground. I'm looking at Tyler Santos, looking at to a similar extent Miranda Maverick. We have seen her get control on the ground before. Even Mayra Bueno Silva was able to submit her in the first round. We've seen it happen before. Ricci, we have not seen get beat on the ground just yet. Every fighter that Ricci has fought, she has been the better grappler. Except, well, okay, the Manon Fiorot fight never hit the mat. Again, Fiorot, Ricci couldn't get it down. Fiorot just outstruck her. And again, that was Ricci up a weight class on short notice. I'm taking Tafa with Ricci to go in there and control Julian Robertson on the ground. I know all the talk I just said about these two fighters getting finishes on the ground, that point still remains. The only difference being that, okay, they're both really good on the ground, and I think both of them are really going to cancel each other out on the ground, and it's going to be where neither fighter can go out there and get a submission, but they're both, again, very skillful on the ground. It's going to make for a very fun fight on the ground, but Tafa Ricci is going to be able to do enough. Give me Ricci to win this fight by unanimous decision. Next up, we've got Mateusz Rebecki taking on Luik Rabadanov. Of course, Jaguar Paw coming in. He's no longer Jaguar Paw. Oh my goodness, I can't talk. He's no longer Jaguar Paw. I tried to get that out 3 times. Changed the nickname, but he's taking on Mateusz Rebecki. I remember I bet on Rebecki in his last fight. My little stint where I was betting a lot on MMA. I bet him to finish Nick Fiore. Didn't get it. Didn't happen. It was only like $60, but still, I could have used that. Mateusz Rebecki doesn't go out there, and he does not get a finish against Nick Fiore. It's a fight where he just kind of controls Fiore in the first round. I think he's gonna get him up out of there. He doesn't, and then in the second and third round, Rebecki just goes to wrestling. And don't get me wrong, it's the first card of January, the first card of 2023. He dominates Nick Fiore, but it's just like it's a win, but. It was a fight that we really thought Rebecki, who was at the time 16-1, who is now 17-1, with his only loss being back in 2014, you thought this guy was going to go out there and dominate Nick Fiore, a guy who was 6-0, and oh, by the way, Rebecki was a -800 favorite in that fight, and oh, by the way, Nick Fiore just got outstruck by Chase Hooper in his last fight. And I know Hooper didn't get the finish, and if Hooper got the finish, that would be something else, but still, again, Nick Fiore is not the greatest UFC fighter, and Mateusz Rebecki could not go out there and finish him. And now he still picks up the win, which is great. But now he gets Luik Rabadanov here. For Rabadanov, as we look at the Tapology odds real quick, you got Rebecki as the favorite, it's now 69% to 31%. And then as the official betting line, we have got Rebecki minus 130, Rabadanov plus 100, give or take. So yeah, that's what you're looking at for this fight. It's a pretty evenly place fight, because I think it should be. You got Kazakhstan Zone and Rabadanov, a guy who is 1-0 in the UFC after his win over Esteban by unanimous decision at UFC 285. He was a guy who was coming off the PFL season in 2021. That's where I became most familiar with Luik Rabadanov. That's the PFL season that I started really watching as he wins his first 2 fights. Loses to Alex Martinez, but then he wins his next fight by first round knockout, so he gets into the playoffs. He gets Martinez again. He beats Martinez, and then he gets into the championship fight where he loses to Hush Manfio, who we're going to be talking about tomorrow on the channel. Plug my PFL video. Is going to be taking on Natan Schultz. 2 former PFL champs will go at it with the spot in the playoffs on the line. But again, Rabadanov loses to Manfio. He's got the season in 2019 where he goes in there. He makes it to the World Championship fight because of his run. I mean, let's look at it. It's an impressive run in 2019. It really is. That's back when the PFL had 8 fighters, though, from each weight class making the playoffs. They had 12 fighters in each weight class for the regular season, and then 8 of them made the playoffs, which was crazy at the time. It was a chaotic format. It was the thing where they had the 2 fights in one night. He has the draw against Islam Mamedov, but he still moves on to the next round. He beats Chris Wade, who's one of the powerhouses the PFL's got at that weight class, of course, at 140 or 155 pounds. And then he goes in there and he loses to Natan Schultz, and of course comes back in 2021, loses to Alex Martinez, and then beats him again. But that's besides the point. Rabadanov's good. This guy is really solid. I was high on him in the PFL, as high when he came into the UFC on him. He's a really solid wrestler. He is going to go in here and he is going to test Mateusz Rebecki, because both these guys are really good on the ground, and you're going to see who's the better grappler, and you're going to see the striking game as well a little bit, but you're going to see, again, a lot of grappling, and you're going to see if Luik Rabadanov can go out there and he can, really implement his game on the ground against Mateusz Rebecki. I know he got dropped in his first fight in the UFC. That's fine. Again, he came back, he got back up, and he worked through it, obviously, because that happened in the second round, still winning there. The third round, he kind of, he comes back and he does well in the third round, but that second round is a little bit shaky with the knockdown. But for Rabadanov, I'm actually going to take him here against Mateusz Rebecki. I'm not impressed. I'll be honest with you, I'm not. I wasn't impressed with this fight against Nick Fiore, because we talked about it going into that fight. We're like, okay, yes, Rebecki's 17-1 or 16-1 at the time, but like, who has he beat? Hadn't really fought anybody, and you don't know how good this guy truly is. And again, I know he was going through a bunch of guys outside of the UFC. He's 30 years old, and again, He's a good grappler, but you know he's a good grappler as well. It's Luik Robotinov. I'm going to take Robotinov to win this fight. Yeah, I think it's an upset pick. My second upset pick of the night. I'm gonna take Luik Robotinov to win this fight. I think he's able to go out here. I think he's able to be the better wrestler. I think he's able to go out there and control Rebecki on the ground. I think he's able to beat him by decision. It might be a controversial pick, but again, I'm not sold on Mateusz Rebecki after his fight against Nick Fiore. It felt like a fight that Rebecki should have gone there, and he really should have dominated him in it. And I know, again, Luik Robotinov did not dominate his first fight in the UFC either, but I'm still confident in the fact that Luik Robotinov can go in there and work his ground game. I think he's going to be the better grappler in this fight. Give me Robotinov to win this fight by unanimous decision. Moving on to the flyweight division, we have got the uber-talented prospect here in Tatsura Taira. Taira will now be taking on Kleydson Rodrigues here. I mean, how big of a favorite is Taira in this fight? I mean, let's find it. He's probably a huge favorite. Yeah, minus 375 against Rodrigues is plus 275 for good reason. Again, you'll look at Tatsura Taira. This guy is a monster in the octagon. Taira 13-0. He's 3-0 in the UFC, and his fights keep on getting better and better as he's gone on. Let's just keep it how it is. I mean, he has constantly been improving in the octagon. His first fight against Carlos Candelario, he dominates him. He knocks Candelario down as well in that fight in the second round. It's really good. He dominates him on the ground. You look at his second fight. Okay, the CJ Vergara fight. Submits him in the second round. Then his last fight on the Lewis and Spivak card. He goes in there and submits Jesus Aguilar in the first round by triangle armbar. And now they give him another flyweight here in Kleydson Rodrigues. They are slowly building Tatsura Taira up. Again, him and Muhammad Mokaev, I would say, are the future of the weight class at this point. And again, Taira is staying active by getting Kleydson Rodrigues. Now, Rodrigues is 1-1 in the UFC. His first fight is a loss to CJ Vergara. And again, if you're playing MMA math, okay, well, Tatsura Taira beat CJ Vergara, and CJ Vergara did lose to Kleydson Rodrigues, so it should make for a somewhat close fight. Vergara beat Rodrigues, so that means Tatsura Taira should beat Kleydson Rodrigues too. Obviously, it doesn't always go that way, but in this kind of fashion, I think it does. Anyways, for Kleydson Rodrigues, his last fight's an incredible performance. It's a knockout in under a minute against Shannon Ross. Now, Ross is a guy that the UFC signed after losing on the Contender Series. They signed him to the UFC, and now he's going to be getting another fight on another Volkanovski card at UFC 290 against Jesus Aguilar. We'll see how that fight does go when we get to it. But again, for Kleydson Rodrigues, he goes out there and he beats Shannon Ross, and now they give him a Tatsura Taira. Now, if Rodrigues is going to want to have a chance to win this fight, he's going to have to replicate that performance against Shannon Ross exactly the same way against Tatsura Taira. Because if he gets later in this fight, he's going to lose. Taira's going to wear him out. Taira's going to get to his wrestling. Taira's going to get to his legs, and Taira's going to wear him out on the ground and eventually submit him. But if, again, a guy here in Kleydson Rodrigues can really work his stand-up game early and put some power and put some damage into Tatsura Taira, okay, there you go. That's Kleydson Rodrigues' pathway to victory. Do I think it's going to happen? I'll be honest with you. I don't think so. I really don't think it's going to happen. I don't think Taira is going to be able to... I don't think Rodrigues is going to be able to outstrike him, because I think Taira's going to get him to the ground pretty quickly. And again, I don't think Taira's striking game is that horrible either, but I think the main thing for me in this fight is going to be the grappling and Tatsura Taira. Taira is going to find a way to get this fight down pretty quickly, and he's not going to let up. It's going to be short, man. Taira's 23 years old, and he's only getting better. First round submission victory for Tatsura Taira, and another huge spot for him. It is a huge spot for Tatsura Taira. His first spot in the UFC with a crowd in Jacksonville, Florida against Kleydson Rodrigues. Tatsura Taira delivers, and he remains undefeated, going to 14-0. Give me Tatsura Taira to win this fight by first round submission. That's how good this guy is. Again, you look at the UFC run, win over Carlos Candelario where he dominated him. CJ Vergara submission, Jesus Aguilar submission. He's going to get another submission finish, and it's going to be against Kleydson Rodrigues. Put that one in. First round submission victory for Tatsura Taira. 4 fights to go. Next up, we have got Brendan Allen taking on Bruno Silva. What a fight. You look at the odds real quick. I don't know why this is lower right now on the card than Puna Soriano and Cedric Dumas, but it's fine. Anyways, you've got Brendan Allen versus Bruno Silva in this fight. Striker versus grappler. You cannot put this fight in any other way. That's how this fight's going to be. Brendan Allen's the grappler. Bruno Silva's the striker. What's going to happen first? Can Brendan Allen take down and hold Bruno Silva first? Can that happen first? Or can Bruno Silva knock out Brendan Allen first? That's the question I have for you in this fight. Because you look at Tapology, 81% going Brendan Allen. Most of that is by submission. 69 of that 81% for Brendan Allen is by submission. For Bruno Silva, the 19% that has him by of the 19% that has Bruno Silva, 85% of them are by knockout. Because that's the simplest way you can put this fight. Because Brendan Allen, you saw in his last fight, in his first main event spot, goes out there and submits Andre Muniz. Nobody thought he was going to go out there and submit Andre Muniz. I didn't think it was going to happen, and he stops the big run that Muniz has been putting together. Now again, Allen was booked in the main event. It was supposed to be on that card that I think was the Kai Kara-France card. Yeah, originally on the Kai Kara-France Amir Albazi card. It was supposed to be the main event, Brendan Allen versus Jack Hermanson. Now that fight got canned. Brendan Allen no longer gets a main event spot because I think Hermanson had an injury, right? Yeah, I think something involved with Hermanson. That's why the fight didn't happen. But anyways, for Brendan Allen, now he gets a shot against Bruno Silva, and this is gonna make for a fun fight. It's going to make for a fun fight because you got the submission artist in Brendan Allen. You know, Allen's going to be looking for a submission. And then you got Bruno Silva, who's going to be looking for the finish on the feet. It just makes for an incredibly fun fight because you look at what Brendan Allen's been able to do. Again, the submission over Christoph Jotko, who's now in the PFL, has not been popped for PEDs, but it's fine. The win over Andre Muniz. You've got the Bruno Silva. And now you got for Bruno Silva, again, the win over Brad Tavares in his last fight's huge. He beats Brad Tavares by knockout in the first round. He dropped 2 fights before that, but again, one's Alex Pereira, and the other one is Gerald Mearshart. But you know, again, Gerald Mearshart was able to go out there and finish Bruno Silva on the ground. Well, you got a guy in Brendan Allen. That's what he does. Brendan Allen tries to get fights down, and Brendan Allen tries to submit you. But again, that's not denying how good of a stand-up game Bruno Silva does have. As you saw in the Brad Tavares fight, how good of a striking game he does have. The thing is, if Brendan Allen can just survive on the feet against Bruno Silva like Gerald Mearshart was able to do and eventually just get him down, he should be able to eventually find a submission. Don't forget how Gerald Mearshart, by the way, in San Diego, knocked down Bruno Silva. That was huge. Again, he got Bruno Silva late in the fight. He got Bruno Silva tired and eventually knocked him down. I think Brendan Allen's going to beat Bruno Silva. That's eventually what I was getting to. It's striker versus grappler, but I think the grappler is going to win. Brendan Allen's going to find a way to get a submission, and he's going to get it in the second round. I think he's going to take down Bruno Silva early in this fight. Again, Silva, again, is a primary kickboxer who wants to keep the fight standing, but Brendan Allen's not going to let him keep the fight standing. Bruno Silva's takedown defense isn't horrible, but against a guy like Allen, it's going to be incredibly tough for him to keep the fight on the feet because Brendan Allen knows how to get fights down. And once he does, he's ever so dangerous when it comes to his jiu-jitsu. It's hard to stay on the ground with Brendan Allen because Brendan Allen is always ready to find a submission. Again, his last performance was his best to date. A main event victory against Andre Muniz was huge. I know it wasn't scheduled to be the main event originally, but it ends up being the main event and he wins it. It was supposed to be Ryan Spann and Nikita Krylov. But Brendan Allen, I think, is going to go in this fight. He's going to pick up another huge victory. I don't think Silva's able to knock him out before Brendan Allen's able to find a takedown. I think, again, Allen's going to try for a couple early. Eventually, he'll get it. And in that time frame where he doesn't have the takedown, Brendan Allen is not going to get knocked out by Bruno Silva. Silva hits hard, don't get me wrong, but I think Allen's going to be able to, get out the first couple rounds, or get the first couple of minutes, I would say, and just avoid getting finished in the first or early by Bruno Silva. Because again, the times he has lost, they've both been second round knockouts against Sean Strickland and Chris Curtis. Those guys, of course, over there in Las Vegas. But I think Allen's able to withstand the adversity he might see in the first round. I think Allen's going to be able to fight through it. And I think Allen will be able to win this fight. He's going to be able to get it done by second round submission over Bruno Silva. All right, next up, we have got Punahele Soriano taking on Cedric Dumas. Again, I don't know why this fight, at least right now, is scheduled to be so high on the card. It's because, again, I don't really see why it is, because I kind of feel like the loser of this fight might be cut by the UFC. I don't know, because, again, Dumas lost his first fight. He'll probably get a third shot, but Dumas is 0-1. For Punahele Soriano, just lost to Roman Kopylov. He's 1-3 in his last 4 fights. Lost to Brendan Allen, a loss to Nick Maximov, a win over Dr. Lujanbula, but everyone beat Dr. Lujanbula, and then a loss to Roman Kopylov where he gets finished in the second round, a fight that he got dominated in. I don't know what to make out of Punahele Soriano, because at one point, Puna had a lot of hype around him. I remember at one point, it was a fight card on ABC, Max Holloway, Calvin Kattar, Punahele Soriano, Dusko Todorovic, I believe was the first fight on ABC, the first UFC fight on ABC, and people were making a big deal out of that fight. I made a big deal out of that fight, because it was undefeated versus undefeated. Soriano and Todorovic were guys at the time in 2021, early 2021, who had a lot of hype around him, and Puna goes out there and knocks him out in the first round, and we're thinking, okay, well, Puna Soriano is the guy. They catapult him. They give him Brendan Allen immediately, and he loses. But we're like, all right, it's okay. He gets Nick Maximov. He loses to Nick Maximov, who got cut from the UFC for basically being too boring. I don't think Maximov fights currently. Yeah, I mean, okay, he went 2-2, but he really got cut for being too boring. He beats Dalcha Lujambula, and then he loses to Roman Kopylov, and now we're looking at a spot for Puna Soriano where he needs to win this fight to stay in the UFC. They're giving him Cedric Dumas here, who, for SD Dumas, again, his last fight, he gets submitted in the second round by Josh Fremd. Fremd did not allow Dumas to get going on the feet, and that's what you got to do against Dumas, because Dumas, again, really good kickboxer. He's got a lot of power. I know it was one of the contender series is by guillotine choke, but still where he made his name was in Icon FC, really. It was his 2 back-to-back fights. The main event against Aaron Highball and then his first fight against DeWitt Dixon. That's what really, put Dumas out there. It's after Masvidal, again, back to Icon FC, and Icon was kind of going for a little bit, and people were watching Icon FC. And that's when Dumas really made a name for himself, was with those first 2 Icon cards, and probably the 2 most watched Icon cards. Again, he's known for his striking, and that's where he's always going to want fights. He's a really good fighter, a really good, he's a street fighter, right? So he's going to be a guy who's going to try to go out there. He is going to try to knock you out on the feet, but if you can get him down to the ground, Dumas is kind of questionable down there. And I know Puna Soriano is not going to be the type of guy to do that. He only has 1 takedown in the UFC. It's his first fight back in December 2019 on UFC 245, Covington Usman. He has 1 takedown against Oscar Peota in the first round. If Puna's smart, he'll go to a takedown in this fight. I don't think he's going to, though. I think he'll try, but I think Puna's going to try to knock him out. You look at the Tapology, odds so far. Soriano, 78% going with him, 22% going with Cedric Dumas here. We can look at the odds real quick. We've got Dumas at plus 185. We've got Puna Soriano at minus 235. That's fine. It's just, again, you're going to see 2 strikers. That's probably why it's on the main card. Someone's probably going to get knocked out. Ever so slightly, give me Puna Soriano to win. I think, again, you're going to see a knockout pretty quickly. I think Puna is going to, similar to the Dusko Todorovic, when he will find a knockout early and he will put down Cedric Dumas and he will knock him out. So give me Puna Heli Soriano here in a fight where he needs to win. I got him to go out there and pick up a first-round knockout win over Cedric Dumas. On to the co-main event. In the women's 125-pound division, we have got Amanda Ribas taking on Macy Barber. It's an interesting fight because Macy Barber is coming off a 4-fight winning streak. Given the start of that winning streak was questionable because nobody thought she beat Miranda Maverick, but still, a win's a win. After that, she beat Montana De La Rosa. She beat Jessica Ai, and now she's coming off that split decision victory over Andrea Lee. And now Barber's looking to make it 5 in a row with the victory over Amanda Ribas, who we just saw most recently at that fight against Viviane Araújo, where she won by unanimous decision. It's a good win for Ribas. She goes in there, she mixes it up, she outstrikes Araújo, she out-wrestles Araújo. Good performance for her. Now she'll get Macy Barber. Again, Barber, who her last loss is actually now the current world champion, which is crazy that Alexa Grasso is the world champion now, but she is. Barber had that 2-fight skid to Modafferi and Grasso, but I think at the time when we saw the Grasso fight, we really didn't know truly how good Alexa Grasso was. And how, Macy Barber loses to Grasso. Everyone was down on Barber at the time. She has the fight against Miranda Maverick. Everyone thought she lost, but she picks up the win. But, hey, she gets the win, and now she was won 3 straight after that. So the narrative that Macy Barber is, not a top 15 fighter is gone. It's just truly how good is she. And this is the fight we're going to find out how truly good she is. Because Amanda Ribas will test her. She will. Ribas is a good striker. Ribas has got good jiu-jitsu. Ribas has got a pretty good wrestling game as well. She has, really mixed it up a lot in her last couple of fights, and we'll see how Macy Barber's able to handle that. Because Barber, started her UFC run as primarily a striker. She's still primarily a striker as well, as she tried to wrestle a little bit in the Grasso fight because she was getting outboxed in that fight. In the Andrea Lee fight, she tried to wrestle a little bit, didn't really go her way, because Andrea Lee, where she found most of her success, was on the ground against Macy Barber. But when you look at the odds for this fight, you've got, I believe, you find Amanda Ribas will be a favorite. Yeah, minus 180 for Ribas, plus 145 for Macy Barber. That's what you can't expect in this fight, because I think Ribas will win. I think as long as Macy Barber doesn't find a knockout or Macy Barber does not find a big shot, that Ribas will be able to likely take down Barber, wear on her on the ground, and then mix it up on the feet as well. I think the speed advantage goes to Amanda Ribas. I think she's quicker than Macy Barber. Power-wise, of course, I would go with Barber over Ribas, but again, Amanda Ribas now at this 125-pound weight class. She was originally a 115-pounder, but she went in. She got the fight against Kaylin Kuchagian, where she barely lost it by split decision in a fight that a lot of people thought she won, but then she stays at 125 to take the Viviane Araújo fight. She wins. Now she gets Macy Barber, another similar, or not similar, but another top, somewhat 125-pounder, and a name that a lot of people know. It's a big fight for Ribas, and I think she's going to get it. Again, I like her striking-wise against Barber, unless Barber finds well, she does have a power advantage, but unless Barber is able to really put damage on her and Barber is really able to mess her up on the feet, I think Ribas will be able to mix it up a lot with her wrestling, and again, just with the speed advantage that she will have over Maycee Barber. And then, yeah, I think that's just going to be enough for her to win the fight. I don't think Barber's going to be able to knock her out. Ribas has got a pretty solid chin. I know she did get finished by, of course, Marina Rodrigues back in the day, and for Rodrigues, man, back-to-back losses, which is unfortunate for her. But I think Ribas is able to win. Amanda Ribas is going to be able to get the victory. I like her to get this fight, and I think she is going to be Maycee Barber. She'll get it done by unanimous decision with the wrestling and with the jiu-jitsu. On to the main event of the evening. In the featherweight division, we talked about at the very start of this video, Josh Emmett, Ilia Topuria. I think if Ilia Topuria wins this fight, he is next in line for a world championship against Alexander Volkanovski. We can look at the rankings after we do give the final prediction for this fight, but actually, I'll do it right now. Let's look at the featherweight. Let's look at the featherweight division. Let's look at the entire top 15. Let's look in a division where, again, the champion has beat a lot of guys, a lot of top guys. Let's look at the state of the division. The champion, Alexander Volkanovski, will be fighting number 1, Yair Rodrigues. Max Holloway is number 2. I think, and a lot of people think he's likely to fight Chan Sung Jung. That is going to be a card on August 26th, I think, if I can remember off the top of my head. That will likely be next for number 2 and for number 7. Brian Ortega, does this guy still fight? I don't know. If he still fights, Arnold Allen is the fight for him. Okay, Josh Emmett is fighting Ilia Topuria. Calvin Kattar is still nursing his injury. Chan Sung Jung, again, is fighting probably Max Holloway. Does Giga Chikadze still fight anymore? I don't know. Movsar Evloev is a very interesting piece in this picture. If Brian Ortega doesn't fight anymore, Evloev, Arnold Allen is a fight you can make. Or, hey, Evloev and Giga Chikadze is a fight you can make as well. Or even Calvin Kattar when Kattar comes back. But is Evloev really ready for the belt next? No. Bryce Mitchell was booked against Evloev. Maybe they run that back. But again, Mitchell lost to Topuria. Sodiq Yusuff, again, just not ready for the championship. Danny Ige just beat Nathan Train, but is he ready for the championship? No. Edson Barbosa, getting at the end of his career, is he going to be fighting for a championship? No. Alex Caceres, love the guy, love the story. Is he going to be fighting for a championship? No. So, realistically, we talked about this earlier last week with 185 with Israel Adesanya and his championship. When you really look at it, the champion and the challengers that he still has to face. Okay. Yair Rodrigues, that's his next fight. After that, you've got the winner of Josh Emmett and Ilia Topuria, but especially Topuria. And after that, Movsar Evloev. That's kind of it. Arnold Allen's in there too. But you're looking for guys he can fight. There's not many, but there's not many that are all that worthy. But you know who is worthy with the victory? It is Ilia Topuria, taking on the former interim title challenger, interim title challenger. I don't know why I wanted to say challenger twice, but taking on Josh Emmett, a guy who, again, in his last fight, took on Yair Rodrigues, where he came up unsuccessful in Australia. He got submitted in the second round by a triangle choke. It's a fight that, again, he was losing up until that point, but it's only in the second round. Rodrigues is looking really good on the feet. The fight hits the mat after Emmett gets a takedown, and Yair goes in there, and Yair throws up a triangle, and again, he submits Josh Emmett in that second round from the guard. Emmett's back. He's taking on Topuria. He is a huge dog in this fight, at least on Tapology he is. Look at this, 93-7% for Ilia Topuria over Josh Emmett. You look on the actual odds for this fight. If I could find it, if it's posted anywhere, here it is. Minus 330 for Topuria, plus 260 for Josh Emmett. So everyone going with the Georgian fighter here. Topuria's from Georgia, yeah. The Georgian fighter in Topuria here for good reason. He's undefeated. He's 13-0. Ilia Topuria is a problem. This guy's good. You want to look at let's look at what he's done so far in the UFC. Comes in, takes down and beats Youssef Zalal at a time where Youssef Zalal surprisingly had a lot of hype at the time. Zalal had some hype around him because he was on a run where he was 4-0 that year in the UFC, or 4-5 winning streak, 3-0 in the UFC. Topuria goes in there and he beats him by unanimous decision. He beats Damon Jackson after that. He knocks him out in the first round. He goes in there, then he beats the crap out of Ryan Hall in a fight that he's a pretty big favorite in, but he goes in there and beats the ever-living hell out of Ryan Hall. Ryan Hall goes for Uranagi, and he just... Imanari rolls. My goodness, MMA terms. I believe I was coining a professional wrestling term. Anyways, he goes for a bunch of Imanaris, and Ilia Topuria goes in there and just beats the crap out of him. Then he gets Jai Herbert in a fight where, okay, Topuria did look a little bit human. Jai Herbert drops him and he rocks him in the first round. Herbert wins the first round against Topuria, and I remember we were talking about the fight and the matchmaking of it. We're like, why is Jai Herbert getting this fight against Topuria, considering, again, Herbert's a guy who's very chinny, and again, the fight ended with Herbert getting chinned, but this is a guy who got finished by Trinaldo and Neto Moicano, and sure, he beat Kama Worthy, but they're going to give him Ilia Topuria. Why? Because it made for a great fight, but again, Jai Herbert got chinned like we thought he was going to get chinned, and he loses the fight. Now, again, Jai Herbert's gone on to beat Kyle Nelson, lose to Ludovic, or draw against Ludovic Klein after that. It's okay. Herbert takes on some really tough guys, but Topuria gets dropped in the first round, but then he goes after that, and then he goes out and gets the finish in the second. Now, Josh Emmett's got power. Josh Emmett can and definitely has the capability of dropping Ilia Topuria. 100% he can drop him. Because Josh Emmett, that's no denying the power this man's got. You've seen, he hasn't really gotten too many knockouts recently, at least since the pandemic started. But the Michael Johnson win, look at that knockout. And it was eerily similar to Johnson's last fight against Carlos Diego Ferreira, where he just gets knocked down. He kind of falls in the same way that Emmett folded him. But Josh Emmett's got power in that right hand. He really does. He can put you out. And again, Topuria is being dropped by Jai Herbert. Josh Emmett's going to have a puncher's chance in this fight. He is going to have a puncher's chance. In terms of his wrestling, Emmett's a good wrestler, but I don't think he'll be able to take down Topuria. Topuria does not get taken down. He got taken down once by Bryce Mitchell. Once. And you know how good of a wrestler Bryce Mitchell is. He got taken down once by him. He goes in there and he submits Bryce Mitchell in the second round in his last fight. That's how good Topuria is on the ground. Josh Emmett, I don't think, is really going to find any advantage of taking this fight down. And on the feet, Ilia Topuria is good. Topuria is a good striker. Again, my only thing and my only slight hesitation with Ilia Topuria is him getting dropped by Jai Herbert. Maybe Josh Emmett's able to drop him as well. That does concern me a little bit, but I still think that Topuria is able to win this fight. I think Topuria eventually, it's going to be kind of a slugfest for a little bit, but I think in the third round, Topuria is eventually going to find that knockout, and Topuria is going to drop Josh Emmett, and he's going to finish him. So making the official pick, Ilia Topuria is going to defeat Josh Emmett. He's going to get it done by third round knockout. Again, there's a reason the odds are like this with 93% to 7%. Sure, there's a reason they're like that, but I think Emmett's definitely got a chance. Emmett's got a puncher's chance, but I think a lot of people forget with Josh Emmett too. Right here, he's 38 years old. Emmett's, he is an older featherweight. It does not pay to be 38 years old at 145 pounds. And I think it was, I don't remember who said it, but it was the realization after Josh Emmett lost to Yair Rodrigues that you're 38, you got your first crack at the championship. How many more chances are you going to get? And it sucks because you only got one. But that's really all that he might get. Now, if he beats Topuria, I think that's why he took the fight, because if he beats Topuria, okay, he's probably going to get that shot at the championship. But if you lose to Ilia, what do we do from here? I think he's going to lose to Ilia Topuria. And again, he's older. He's 38 years old. I just don't know how much left we're going to get out of Josh Emmett. And again, Father Time is not on his side in this one. Topuria is only getting better, and Emmett's, unfortunately, only getting slower. It doesn't take away from the fact he's still got power, and he still has a chance to win this fight 100%. But you're not picking a fighter just based on a puncher's chance. You're taking the guy who you think all around is the better fighter, and Ilia Topuria is the better fighter. So Ilia Topuria is going to beat Josh Emmett. He's going to get it done by knockout in the third round. We're going to lock all these predictions in. And folks, thank y'all for watching our UFC Fight Night predictions. Not that one with Victorian Cannonier. That's already on the channel. By the time you're seeing this video, that card already happened. But with Josh Emmett and Ilia Topuria in the main event from Jacksonville, Florida, this Saturday night on June 24th. Again, rise and shine early in the morning, 9 p.m. Pacific, noon Eastern time for the start of that card, I believe, on the prelims. But folks, thank y'all for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. Make sure to comment too if you disagree with any of the picks, and let me know. Do you like this format better or the other format of MMA videos or for the UFC? Again, next week with Strickland and Magomedov will be this exact same format, but from here on out, again, let me know what you want me to do for Volkanovski and Rodrigues. So folks, thank y'all for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more, and Mamba forever.